Hi there, good morning, how's it going? This is Karlovy Vary, as you can see, packed up, leaving. I was just in the Albert supermarket there, getting some cash from the ATM. I am now walking to the train station. I have already been there and bought a ticket to Pilsen, where Pilsner beer originates from. It is other side of the river, up on that hill there, about a 10-minute walk. I have plenty of time to get there and then get the train, about a 2-hour train journey. Looking forward to seeing Pilsen. Not sure if I will stay there tonight yet or not. I've heard sort of mixed reviews about the city. I guess it's kind of more of a typical city, not as picturesque as Karlovy Vary here, but it sounds like it will be worth a stop. Perhaps I will just check it out for a little bit and then keep on going and try to get to Czech Republic. We'll see, but I will just get there and then assess the situation. So, while I walk along here, I thought that I would talk about a few things, in particular related to a previous video about getting here and the various complications, and give some information, sort of clarify what happened, and hopefully people out there traveling can try to avoid such circumstances. But also part of the point that I want to make is that you can't be prepared for everything when you travel, especially internationally, in places where you don't speak the language, where so much is going to be unfamiliar and unpredictable, and you just can't know step by step exactly what obstacles you're going to encounter and avoid them all. So one thing that I will address here is the issue of doing research in preparation for your travels. I do some research, of course. That is how I figure out where to go and oftentimes how to get there, not necessarily down to the exact minute or whatever, but my approach is kind of do the necessary research to avoid, massive complications, and then leave the rest up to figure it out on the spot, depending on what situations actually come up. So here's the thing. Doing research online takes time, and it can take a lot of time. Trying to figure out bus schedules, train schedules, routes, all kinds of stuff, especially in a foreign country, coming across websites in a foreign language. So I will recommend the website roamtorio.com. Many of you will know about it, but I checked that site for trains going to Pilsen 2 days ago and found the correct times, because it is in English and it is fairly reliable, but certainly not 100%. And so I saw that there was a train leaving at 12:24. And so I was keeping that in mind. Now, I was considering other options for leaving here, including renting a car, which is ideally what I wanted to do. So this morning I woke up not knowing what the day was going to bring, how I was going to leave here. I called 2 rental car companies, and neither of the people that answered spoke English. The requirement was going to be to rent a car that I could drop somewhere else, whether it was going to be Pilsen or Czech Republic, or maybe even to Prague. But they didn't speak English, and my general feeling was it was unlikely that there was going to be the possibility of dropping it at another town. And so I just scratched that plan because of the language barrier there, which I'm pretty bummed about because somebody had recommended a town nearby, 25 minutes away, that looked really pretty. It was like a miniature Český Krumlov with a castle, and very close by. It would have been perfect to drive over there, check that out, and then continue on my way somewhere else. But that is the reality, is that language is going to be an issue here in the Czech Republic. Then many people do speak English, but it is certainly not universal. So as my backup plan, I had determined, hopefully correctly, that there was this train at 12:24. And so I asked the lady at the reception desk at my hotel there to call me a taxi. Now, many of you will have seen the video in which I arrived here, and then it was this whole situation. Let's get a little view of the beautiful Karlovy Vary. Goodbye. Awesome place. Spent 3 nights here. Highly recommend it. Before I forget, I will get back to what I was talking about. Then about the thermal bath, the spa, hot tub, sauna, etc. in the hotel where I stayed, as I mentioned in a previous video, then that was all included in the price of the hotel. And so I went to it yesterday. Unfortunately, it was totally not going to be possible to film there. There were people there, you know, just not a place to take out a camera and point it at people. But it was pretty nice. Not the best hot springs, hot tub, etc. that I've been to. There was a pool. It was cold. It was too small to swim laps. There was a very small hot tub and a sauna. So I just made the use of that. The sauna and the pool. I didn't go in the hot tub because there was another woman in there, and it was so small you would practically be touching knees sitting in there. So anyways, back to, I'm at the hotel this morning, and the lady there who spoke good English calls me a taxi. I'm curious to find out now, okay, how much is this going to be? As I showed in that last video, then when I arrived at the train station, which I'm about to arrive at in 2 minutes, but coming on the train, then the first taxi driver tried to charge me 500 Czech koruna. That was $21 US. I knew that that was overpriced. I decided, screw it, I'm just gonna walk. So I tried to check on my phone. The first problem is that the cell phone service right here is really bad. I experienced that just now as well, trying to find the ATM. And it was just, you know, the wheel turning and it wasn't pulling up my hotel. And so I think that I decided, while that was, you know, trying to get the directions to my hotel, then I would inquire about the taxi prices. So I come down right up here and ask the guy. He says 500. I say no thanks. And then in the meantime, then my phone had pulled up the directions. Problem was, it was losing battery and fast. I think that it was draining especially quickly because of the cold, because it was close to freezing as it is right now. So for the people who had recommended I should get a battery pack, what do you call it? Backup battery thing, then I don't need one because I have my laptop here and I have the cord. I can easily just plug it in and charge up my phone when necessary. My laptop is basically a battery pack, and I have used it in the past. Now, the reason that I didn't charge it up on that train journey, because I was sitting there with my computer. Basically, I should have, but it was down to like 20-something%, and I was thinking, well, I'm just gonna get there and just catch a taxi. I just need to know the name of my hotel. And then that whole situation transpired, and then I was considering walking it. So, coulda, woulda, shoulda. You know, in hindsight, you can see, well, I should have done this, should have done that, but I wasn't, for one thing, anticipating that the cold was going to be a factor in draining down my battery really quickly, and normally like 20-something% should still last a little while longer, but you know, that's just the reality of traveling, is that you aren't always 100% prepared for every single complication that comes along. So, as I showed in that video, then doing my best to make use of the directions while I had them, I started walking that direction because I hadn't gotten a good handle yet on where the city was. And then my battery drained down ridiculously fast, and when it gets to 5%, then the screen goes almost dark, like you can kind of barely see it, but it's basically totally useless. And so that happened just super quickly, and so I never got the chance to get a good grasp on which direction I should go. And so I walked over that bridge there up that way, just because I'd gotten the wrong impression from seeing the map for the little bit that I actually had it up there. Meanwhile, you just saw where I came from walking from town, and it was the exact opposite direction. And then I was up there, and it was feeling like this wasn't the way to town. And then I asked a guy which way to go, and he totally misdirected me, because I was at like this junction, which was the junction of that road going up that way and then cross this way, and he pointed me that way. And so that is how I ended up out on that road out there, thinking, well, I guess town is out this way, because I knew that it was a bit of a distance. It was showing 4.4 kilometers to my hotel. So I don't know what happened with that guy, but he could have easily just pointed the right way going back down this way. Maybe there's a way to get there, you know, that way, but that really doesn't make any sense. So that threw me off as well. And then there was a little bit of confusion from people thinking that I had caught a Bolt car that had driven by, because I showed this car with Bolt written on it driving by, and in the next clip I was in a taxi. I was not in that Bolt car. The Bolt car had driven past, and then I watched it keep going, and then I stood there for a good, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 minutes more, waiting for a taxi to come along, and I didn't see a single other one. One taxi had driven past me in that whole time that I was up there. And so I basically finally realized, okay, I just got to get back to the train station where there will be some taxis, and get it from there to the hotel, because there was really no other option at that point. By the way, Bolt is not in the United States, so I was just not familiar with it. I'd sort of heard of it, probably had seen cars previously, but just wasn't really, you know, clued into it. And so I get back to right there, and there are two taxis. One is empty, one has a guy in it. I got the ride with him. I asked him before how much was the ride going to be, and he said, I will use the meter. And so he refused to give me a straight price, and I was just, you know, ready to be done with this whole situation and get to my hotel. And so I went with it, even though I felt like he was probably going to try to overcharge me. And sure enough, as I showed, we get to the hotel, and he says it's $440. There was no meter, and at that point, what are you going to do? when you don't know for certain what the real price is, for one thing. Maybe it's, that is the case because, the taxi drivers don't get so much business around here, or, supply and demand, who knows what. And then you don't want to be arguing with somebody and then it turns out you're being a jerk and trying to rip them off, and they're just trying to, make a fair living. But that wasn't the case. He was ripping me off because the taxi this morning, she calls it, I get in the car, and he has an actual meter. Now he types in right away 190 Czech koruna. And so I'm thinking, okay, that sounds like a fair price, but is that the start fee and then it's going to be going up from there, in which case, okay, this is seeming like it's going to be another scam. But no, he just typed in 190 and then that was it. It never changed. It was 190 Czech koruna, which is about $7 instead of the 18 that the 440 Czech koruna was. So both of the first two guys were ripping me off. So there you go. That's basically the story and clarifications and all that. Train leaving in, let's see here, 17 minutes. So I think that I will just post this as one video because that was a long ramble there. And I guess I'll see if I feel like filming another one, but probably I will want to show Pilsen, I'm sure, and then we'll see if I continue onwards from there. So look for another video coming from the Czech Republic. So I wanted to expand a little bit on something that I mentioned at the beginning here, which is the subject of doing research. And why don't I do more research to avoid many of these situations coming up? So there's a very practical reason. As I said, research takes time. And it can take a lot of time. Just booking a flight can literally take hours, checking all the options, especially when you're, flexible with your dates and locations. But trying to figure out specific things like how to get on the tram. There was the issue when I was in Prague of, well, the tram goes by, but then I don't have a ticket for it. Why didn't I research that beforehand? Oh man, who knows how much time it's going to take for, all the various different things that are going to come up. And I just have zero interest in researching all that stuff and being prepared for every little thing that's going to come along, because that is going to take time. That could take hours. It's going to take you time when you're in the situation, whatever comes up. So it's going to take you time either way. And I would rather spend my time on the situation in the moment, dealing with it, than spending hours online, much of which is going to be fruitless. And you don't know what exact situations are going to come up in the course of the day. Now, what I do want to make sure and do is do the necessary research to avoid the big stuff. Times of, maybe the times of the train. For example, figuring out on Rome to Rio, even though I wasn't 100% certain because that site is not always completely reliable. But I got here before that and had a backup idea. For one thing, possibly taking a train somewhere else because I was flexible, but also the bus station, there were other options. But you're going to spend time either way, and for me, then I would rather just deal with those situations as they arise for the most part, and you'll figure it out. Figuring out the tram is not a big one. You know, that's not a huge thing. You ask some people, you look around, etc. That will probably be quicker than trying to figure it out online. And also, I don't mind if these situations come up. That is just part of traveling. I am just completely used to it, accepting of it. Just because I might get a little frustrated or whatever in the moment doesn't mean that it ruined my day. I just expect that this kind of stuff is going to happen. As long as I've been doing this, if it was ruining my day that I had a complication getting the taxi to my hotel or whatever, then yes, I probably would do all kinds of research beforehand and try to avoid all of these potential situations. But there are so many situations that come up. You would spend your whole day doing research trying to avoid this, avoid that, etc. And then meanwhile, you get into the conundrum, and so far, I've always figured it out one way or another, and it's really never been a huge disaster. Certainly there have been big ones, like, for example, I'm in Thailand back in 2014, and I tried to go to Laos. My passport was getting fullish, but there were a few blank pages at the end of my passport, so I thought that I was good. That could be the train coming. So let's get back there and be ready for it. I'll wrap this up in literally a minute or so. But I get to the Laos border, way north of Bangkok, and they give me my passport back and say no. And it turns out those pages at the end of the US passport are not for passport stamps. They're for amendments and endorsements, whatever that is. I had to go all the way back to Bangkok and get pages added into my passport, and then took a bus all the way back, 10 hours I think, to the same border crossing, and they let me through that time. So that was a big one, but still, you know, it worked out. It was a story. And so stuff happens when you travel, and I am fine with that. I'm not going to spend tons of time online trying to avoid every possible complication. All right, this is probably the train. Here we go. Pilsen.